So I was having a chat to Rob about how we run this customer seat at the table session, and I could give you a giant presentation on how difficult it is to do in a big organisation, but we thought probably a little exercise around how we go about thinking about customer needs at the very start of what we would call, where I work, the discovery process. So think of this as you're trying to get some kind of concept of what we can do for the customer, and then there's, depending on the size and complexity of your organisation, there's a whole range of activities we do after what we're going to do tonight. What we're going to go through is, it's all in a book by a guy called Jake Knapp, who works at Google. It's about a 5-day sprint to come up with a customer-centric product. So I'm not going to give you a big overview of the process. We're just going to go step by step. I think if I sat here and tried to explain it at length, it would probably just be confusing. I think it's probably better just to live it. Now, as we go through, we're going to do a couple of things. So talk a little bit about design thinking, which you might have heard of. Some people call it human-centered design. So that should become apparent. Talk about sprints. I'm sure you're probably all over this anyway. And then the Scrum framework. I'll bring those concepts out at the end, and we'll just get stuck into the activity. Yeah? The first activity is really to try and identify the customer problem you guys want to work on as a group. So it might be something that you've seen in your working life. It might be something that just takes your interest. But what'll be good is, in your group of 8, discuss some customer problems that you're familiar with, that you think are worth exploring, and then agree that experience or agree that customer problem that you want to address over the next couple of hours. So the way to kind of communicate the customer problem you're going to work on is just a simple sentence that everybody can rally around, and at the end we're just going to share it across both groups. So we'll start the timer there, and then I'll pop around, and if there's any questions, happy to answer those as we go. So everything that we do today is going to be time bound, and we just have to cut and move on. And that's not something we just do when we're presenting, trying to fit it into 2 hours. It's something we do when we're doing these type of projects as well. Hey, so did you guys want to go first? Share with us the customer problem you want to work on over the next couple of hours?
Getting to work happier.
Getting to work happier.
Problem to solve.
Wow, that's a...
Lots of fabulous ideas. But the most fabulous one was that as a customer or an employee inside of a large organisation, there's never enough conference rooms or availability for meeting rooms.
Okay, so solving a conference room problem. Okay, there's 2 good problems I'm sure we can all rally around. Awesome. So we got the problems for the group set, and now what we're going to do over the next probably 40 minutes is something that's pretty unnatural. So it's sketching. And if you're anything like me, probably since kindergarten you haven't really drawn, right? So something we do as a first little icebreaker is just to practice drawing a little bit, not under any particular pressure. So what we're going to do is play a game of Pictionary. So you just in groups of 2, and it's like 2.5 minutes each. I don't know if people here are familiar with Pictionary, but you choose a topic like a movie or a book or something like that, and then you think of a movie in your head. I don't know, Shrek. Oh yeah, you're going to use that one. And then you have to draw that up, and the goal is for the other person to guess the movie or whatever it is that you're drawing. Yeah. So it's just meant to be a little bit of fun, a little bit of an icebreaker. So choose your group of 2. Yep, and go for it. Yep. So the idea with that is we're starting to get into a little bit of a creative space. Now we're going to come back to the exercise at large. So what we're going to do is take your customer problem, or take the problem you're trying to solve, and we're going to work individually for now, not as a group. Over the next 3 minutes, just take one of your pieces of paper and think about how you would like to solve this customer problem. Volume here is probably way more important than quality. So we don't want beautiful drawings. You're not going to have to show this to anyone. It's stuff you remember. It's stuff you just are understanding yourself. Okay, awesome. So you should have a range of ideas of how you think you can solve the customer problem. So the next step we're going to take here is first of all a little bit of origami. So hopefully everybody's got a clean A3 sheet of paper in front of them. We're just going to fold it in half lengthways first. Yep, so you should have something that ends up looking like that. Then fold it in half lengthways, so you should end up with something that looks like that. Awesome, and then just fold it in half one more time. You should have 8 panels, and you've just made something that's called a crazy 8. And so a crazy 8 is a way of expanding on our favourite ideas. So hopefully you've got a list of ideas, 1, 2, 3, 4. What I want you to do is choose your favourite one. Choose your favourite one. And on the crazy 8, think of 8 different ways you can bring that idea to life. So for example, if say you're trying to solve a problem around conference rooms, one way might be an app that you put in the number of rooms, the facilities you need, and it spits out an answer. Another way might be you have a Gantt chart that shows your room availability and so on. And so the idea is on the Crazy 8 to come up with as many ways as you can think of to bring your solution to life. So at its heart, this is about making sure that we're getting a good spread of ideas, and often our first idea isn't our best idea. So the Crazy 8's trying to narrow in on a good range of ideas. So just to repeat, take your favourite idea from the list you just made, and on your Crazy 8, so one idea per panel, bring that to life. You can bring it to idea with pictures, words, whatever's meaningful to you. So hopefully you've got a good range of ideas around how you're going to implement that idea, be it an app, be it, I don't know, a new form of public transport or something like that. And so what you should have on your Crazy 8 is a whole range of snapshots about how you bring your idea to life. So we're going to do one more exercise individually, and then we'll start bringing things together. So what I want you to do is just choose the best idea off your Crazy 8. And like I say, that should be a snapshot. And now what we want to do is put it together into a story around how a customer or a person is going to use your solution to solve the customer problem. And what we want to do is put it together in a 3-panel storyboard. Now at the end of the exercise, we're going to there's blue tack on the tables, and I'll get you to pin your storyboard up. And if we just get all the groups putting their storyboards in the one place, that'd be great. So the important thing is that your storyboard is done to a level of detail where somebody looking at it for the first time will understand how your solution works, right? So if you've been drawing pretty roughly, draw a little bit nicer. It's probably good to use a few words here as well. Yeah. And so the idea in this part of the exercise is just by yourself, go and review the ideas that are on the wall and stick dots around some of the features that you find quite interesting, some that you think will be really helpful when it comes to solving your customer problem. Now the only rule on this is you can't vote on your own design. So you can't dot up your own design, just other people's. Okay, so what we've got now is a whole range of ideas on the wall with a little bit of what we call a heat map. So we're starting to understand, what are the ideas that are going to be really interesting to incorporate. So you can see here, this one's got a lot of votes, that one's got a lot of votes. And as you walk through and understand those ideas, can we bring them together into something that's even better than those ideas as standalone? So what we're going to do next is start sharing the ideas amongst the group. So we'll start working together as a team. As we do that though, it's always important that we have someone who's a final decision maker so we don't die by democracy. So the first thing to do is just choose an owner, a product owner on your table. So this is the person that gets the final say on the features and functionality of your product. So now we've got the product owner. What we're going to do is just get up in your groups and start talking through the designs, right? And the way we do this is just to start talking through the designs with the most dots first, and the person who actually brought that design together just talks through what they've done and why they've done that. So people can start to understand the rationale behind the design and how it helps solve the problem. So we'll do that over the next 5 minutes. Go for it. Okay, so we're done on that part. Now, this is where the boss gets to put their foot down. No. So now what the product owner is going to do is choose a combination of ideas that they want to bring into the final product that you're going to bring together. So, product owner, communicate the ideas you want in your final product and explain that back to the team. Now what we're going to do, if you guys grab a seat, is we're going to bring together a prototype of this idea that's been synthesized out of your collective ideas. You can do that however you want. You can build something and tape it together. You can, I'm not sure what your ideas are, or you can draw up a 3-panel storyboard, whatever brings your idea to life. Choose how you want to communicate your prototype to a customer, and then bring it together. So what we're going to do now is a sprint review. So we've got 2 groups, 5 minutes each. You probably won't need the whole 5 minutes, so this is going to last a little less than 10 minutes. I think this team's been ready to go for about 5 minutes. So if you guys want to get up and give us a talk through your, first of all, just reiterate the problem you're trying to solve and then how the solution helps customers address the problem. Team 2, you guys ready to go? I call it a sprint retrospective. This is, I know you guys are familiar with Agile, this is not a retro at all. We're not going to do what went well, what could we do better, and actions. What I'll do is I'll just do a little bit of a replay of what we did, because I didn't give you any context before we got into this. I think just doing things sometimes helps you understand. So the technique is that we've used here is a design sprint. And what I love about it is you can use it in organisations big and small. So the organisation that I work in is pretty sizable. We use this for a range of reasons that I'll come on to. So the first thing we did was align on the problem. You guys did that pretty quick. You had, I think, 5 minutes or something like that. In a bigger company, that can take a long time. So typically when we're aligning on a problem in the company I work in, we take about 6 weeks to do it. And that sounds like a long time, but you're out speaking to customers, understanding the problem from their perspective. You're in speaking with the people who are serving customers or operating in the back office and impacting customers to understand some of the root causes. And so then what we do in a bigger company is you typically bring that together as a workshop, and you get people from across the company that are in some way impacting your customer, share that problem back and get them centered on the problem. And then in that workshop we do much what we did here. So once we're aligned on the problem, we first of all started working alone, and that's really important. I guess a number of people have been in workplaces where there's very loud, dominant voices, and they often don't have the best ideas, right? So working alone is a way of drawing ideas out from everyone from across the spectrum. And preventing a solution being dictated. That's a nice way to operate, but if you kind of continue to operate in that way, it probably takes a long time to make decisions. So you can see once we've got a good spread of ideas, we introduced a product owner, and it started to become a little bit of, I'd call it a benevolent dictatorship. So everybody gets to share their ideas, but you still have somebody who's there making decisions to help drive you forward. And then once you did that, we developed a prototype really quickly and cheaply. Now, you might sit there and go, is that a really good thing? Yes, it is. So, in some of the companies I've worked in, they'd come up with an idea like that and then they'd spend a few $1 million and pop it out into market and go, holy crap, that didn't work. What we do where I am now is we take those paper-based prototypes that are really cheap and we put them in front of customers, and that's our first step. And then we start refining the idea. So immediately you're getting customer feedback, building it into your idea. And that puts you on the path to develop something that's effective rather than developing efficiently. So what we would typically do is 4 to 5 1-week sprints where we'd have 5 or 6 concepts that we're putting in front of customers. We'll try and test with a minimum of 8 customers each week. We get feedback. We put that feedback in front of stakeholders in the company I work at, and based on the feedback from customers, the feedback from stakeholders, we iterate the prototypes. Sometimes that iteration leads to the prototype being killed. The customer says, I just don't want this. Bang, gone, if you get that resoundingly. And other times you get prototypes coming together. But at the end of a 5 to 6 week period, we'll typically have 3 to 4 ideas that we know are very desirable for our customers. Now, just a few quick points about when you're sitting with customers. Customers, when they're sitting in front of a paper prototype, they'll communicate with you from the perspective of their aspirational self. So if you're asking, for example, would you spend time to do this research on this online portal? They go, yeah, that online portal, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely, it looks really good. But when they hit the real world and they've got a time constraint and they've got to get home to get their kids dinner, or they've got hundreds of meetings because people aren't using points-based systems and there's lots of ineffective meetings, customers can very quickly move away from the ideas that they thought were great. So even once you've gone through this co-design process with customers, it's important that the next step is to get something out into the real world really quickly, really cheaply, just to test. Is what they've told you just their aspirational self, or it's actually their real self? So customers love engaging around this kind of thing, but the customers you speak to as you test those type of prototypes are really important. So if you're working in a B2C world, so business to consumer, it's actually really easy. We're all consumers, we all have certain wants and likes, and so you can almost get out on the street and start testing as a first port of call. If you're in the business to business world, this part of the process, testing with customers, is actually really complicated. Often you're in very specialised areas where you can only talk to a very select few people who really understand it, and they're the people who will eventually use the service or are using a similar service today. So where I work, it can take us up to 2 to 3 months to get the right sample size and the right target customer base to test these ideas. So if anybody's looking to deploy this in the B2B world, that's a really big constraint. Hey, so once you've got an idea of what's desirable, that's really powerful, because for those of you that do work in companies with lots of stakeholders, everybody brings their own opinion. But if you can say, this is what our users are telling us, and so therefore we believe this is the right direction, that's almost a little bit of an argument people would struggle to refute, right? So that's the desirability side of the equation. Then you've got to think about, so we think about desirability, viability, and feasibility. So desirability, does our customer want it? Viability, can we make money out of this? So, or is it going to benefit us in some way? And so often that can take the form of a business case. So will it drive an efficiency within our organisation? Or something like this, so the room booking system or your express lane, how much you monetize it? How do you think you can charge customers for it? And then the feasibility is, can you build it? And so with this idea here, you might need to add an additional lane to a highway, right? And so your feasibility could go out the window pretty quickly, unless you're living in, I don't know, Brisbane that's got lots of space, right? So hopefully that puts kind of the exercise in context, how you use it. So it's very much in that discovery phase to get prototypes that you can discuss with customers, and some of the kind of activity that would typically flow from an exercise like this.